Have you ever seen a dog so thin, so wounded, with nearly all of its fur gone, just standing there trembling in front of a piece of food too afraid to even believe it's for them? No barking, no growling, just those terrified, hungry eyes staring up as if asking, "Can I really eat this?" One small gestorious simple meal became the beginning of something no one expected, a long, emotional rescue that ended up saving not one, but 3 forgotten lives. It began when a girl walked past a fast food restaurant and saw a stray dog desperately digging through trash. The dog's body was covered in scabs and missing fur, and it looked like it hadn't eaten in days. She couldn't ignore it. She went inside, bought some pig liver, and placed it gently on the ground. The dog looked at her, unsure and afraid. No matter how softly she called, it didn't move. Only when she stepped back did the dog slowly approach and eat a few bites. She tried to hand feed it, but it didn't come close, only eating what was on the ground. After it ate, she gave it a cup of water. It drank carefully, eyes darting around in constant fear. It was used to being chased away. The next day, she returned with more food. The dog appeared again, still keeping its distance. As she opened a can of food, another stray showed up just as skinny and just as scared. She divided the meal between them. The 2 dogs ate quietly, side by side. The first dog remained fearful, its tail tucked under its body throughout the entire interaction. After they finished eating, she poured clean water into a bowl. The dog drank quickly while staying alert and frequently glancing around, as if ready to run. On the 3rd day, she spotted the dog again on another street. It initially walked past her without recognition, but after a few steps, it paused and looked back. She called out. The dog stopped and walked a bit closer than before. After finishing the meal that day, it left, maintaining its usual cautious distance. By the 4th day, she brought a cage with the intention of bringing the dog home. She placed food inside and waited. The dog approached, slowly walked into the cage halfway, but as soon as she stepped closer, it quickly backed out and ran off. She didn't chase it or make any further attempts that day. On the 5th day, she couldn't find the dog anywhere. She looked around, called softly. Then, faintly, she heard a sound. The dog had been hiding nearby. It looked at her but didn't come closer. Maybe something had happened that scared it again. She kept her voice low and calm, and eventually, the dog walked over. This time, it wasn't alone. 2 more strays had followed. All 3 were small, quiet, and full of fear. From then on, they always showed up together. She brought enough food and water for all 3. Although her initial intention had been to help 1 dog, she now had 3. She returned home and talked to her family. To her surprise, they were supportive. On day 15, she created a small fenced space in a quiet area and fed them there daily. She wanted them to feel safe in a fixed spot, to build routine and comfort. The dogs slowly began to relax in that routine. On the 17th day, she returned with a larger cage. She placed food inside and waited. One of the dogs bravely stepped inside first. This time, there was no panic. She quietly closed the door. That day, all 3 were brought home. The first night was different for each dog. One stayed curled up, shaking. The other 2 quickly fell asleep, clearly exhausted but finally feeling safe. The next morning, the most fearful dog refused to leave the cage. It was the only place it felt protected. That night, something changed. When she reached out her hand, the dog didn't flinch. It gently licked her fingers. Then its tail began to wag. She smiled through tears. She wanted to take them for a walk. But that 1 dog still refused to go outside. Maybe it thought that if it left the house, it would be abandoned again. So she started small, taking the other 2 first. They were nervous, but they followed her slowly around the block. The fearful one stayed behind. 3 days passed, and that dog still wouldn't go to the bathroom. She had no choice but to carry it outside. In the elevator, it froze. Once she placed it on the grass, it sniffed around, walking in circles. Then finally, it went. Afterward, it looked visibly lighter. She took it to the vet the next day. The doctor diagnosed a serious skin condition and said it would need at least 3 months of consistent treatment shots, medicine, and medicated baths. She agreed immediately. Over the following weeks, the dogs started to change. Their eyes brightened. Their bodies relaxed. Fur began to grow back. They played. They wagged their tails. They slept deeply. They became part of her life. She never thought that feeding a single stray dog would lead to this. But for these three, that first meal wasn't just food, it was the beginning of trust, safety, and healing. If this story moved you even just a little, please click like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. Because these dogs and countless others deserve to have their stories heard. They deserve a second chance.
Have you ever seen a living creature that looked already dead? Not because it had stopped breathing, but everything on its body, its eyes, mouth, limbs, was buried, strangled, and rotting right on its own flesh. A being that once ran, once breathed, once lived, now reduced to a filthy, motionless mass, reeking and decaying by the roadside, forgotten in plain sight. We saw it, and we couldn't walk away. It wasn't some remote location. That was a big road, one that vehicles and pedestrians passed every day, between broken bricks, bits of trash, and a crack in a neglected wall. A creature lay wedged in a narrow space, motionless, silent. It took a moment for our eyes to recognize what it was. At first, we only noticed a small, strange shape wedged tightly between heavy cement blocks, barely visible beneath layers of filth, dirt, and sand. It didn't move. It didn't make a sound. From a distance, it could have been just another piece of debris, discarded and forgotten like everything else around it. But as we stepped closer, we caught it. A weak, irregular breath. That's when we realized it was alive. It was a dog, or rather, what remained of one after days, maybe weeks, of suffering in silence. The dog's entire body was covered in severely matted fur. The coat was thick, filthy, and tangled to the point that it formed a solid layer stuck to the ground, resembling a hardened, dirt-caked surface. Clumps of fur were packed with dried feces, twigs, and soil, forming stiff, crusted masses that pulled its limbs inward and restricted movement. The discharge from its eyes and nose had dried and hardened, causing the fur around its face to fuse together. Its legs and tail were not visible. The body appeared as one unrecognizable, compact mass. We stood in disbelief. No one knew how long it had been there. Days' weeks' rain had hardened the mess. Insects had begun to gather around exposed areas of skin where the matted fur had lifted slightly, revealing open sores. As we watched closely, one paw made a faint, involuntary movement. It was minimal, but enough to confirm the dog was still alive. We began by clearing the surrounding area, removing debris to make space for the rescue. Because the dog's fur was fused to the concrete by dried waste, it took 3 people to carefully lift and detach the body from the surface. We worked gradually to avoid tearing the skin. Once freed, we laid a soft, clean cloth on the ground beside the wall, then carefully transferred the dog onto it. The body was stiff. It didn't resist. No growl, no cry. It simply lay there, eyes sealed, legs curled unnaturally. We decided to perform emergency care immediately on site. Its condition was too critical to move far without risk. We started with the fur, using scissors and small grooming clippers. We slowly removed the thick mats layer by layer. As soon as we cut into the first layer, a strong foul odor was released, a mix of rot, feces, and infected discharge. Underneath, the skin was inflamed, red, and damaged. Some areas were open wounds, others covered with dried scabs, and some parts broken open into wounds teeming with infection. The fur had grown inward in places, puncturing its skin. Parasites, fleas, ticks, and even small maggots scattered as we cut deeper into the coat. In one hind leg, the skin was swollen to twice its size. The fur entangled so deeply we had to cut in layers. Each snip risked tearing the delicate skin underneath, but the filth had to come off. While one person continued cutting, another began flushing the wounds with antiseptic solution. While one person continued cutting, another began flushing the wounds with antiseptic solution. We flushed open wounds with saline, gently removed necrotic tissue, and packed open sores with antiseptic-soaked gauze. The legs were checked for circulation. One was nearly cold. We applied warming pads beneath the body. In the brief moment when its eye cracked open slightly, we cleaned away hardened pus and crust. The eyeball underneath had a cloudy film, indicating possible damage or infection. As we cleared more of the matted fur, we uncovered dozens of bite marks, scars, and old burns, the result of prolonged neglect and exposure. But the dog remained completely still. It didn't flinch, didn't move. It was unclear whether it was too weak, too numb, or both. Almost an hour passed on that roadside. We wrapped its body in clean towels to stabilize it for transport. The team carried the dog carefully, with one person supporting the head and chest and another holding the back and hips. Transport was done immediately. The dog was placed in the vehicle, supported by towels on all sides to minimize movement. We rushed it to the nearest veterinary clinic. The vet team had been alerted and was waiting. Initial checks confirmed what we suspected: severe dehydration, hypothermia, dangerously low blood pressure. Blood work showed systemic infection, anemia, and organ stress. There was inflammation in every joint, signs of malnutrition-related bone weakness, and fungal skin infection across more than 70% of its body. Its heart rate was irregular, oxygen saturation low. They began IV fluids immediately, added antibiotics, and administered pain relief. Blood glucose was dangerously low, so a sugar drip was added. Eyes were flushed and treated. Open wounds were cleaned again under mild sedation. The clumps of fur we hadn't managed to remove were carefully shaved off, revealing more lacerations, one of which required stitches. The dog remained silent throughout, but it was alive. And now, it had a fighting chance. After nearly 3 hours, the vet gave a diagnosis: if no complications arise in the next 48 hours, it might pull through. We brought the dog back to the shelter that night. A clean, warm kennel had been prepared. The temperature was monitored. soft bedding, soft food, a constant supply of fresh water. Day by day, it began to return. We extended its treatment plan. Anti-inflammatory medications continued, and wound dressing was refreshed twice a day. The dog was placed under a heat lamp to keep its core temperature stable. It took several days before it could stand, and even then, only with support. We built a custom sling from soft straps and fabric so it could begin to retrain its legs. Appetite returned slowly. First just licks of liquid food from a spoon, then softened kibble soaked in broth. Each meal was a tiny victory. Hydration improved, color returned to its gums. New fur began growing around the scabbed-over wounds. Weeks passed, with physical therapy. The dog took its first real steps, wobbly, awkward, but standing. We clapped and cried. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was recovery. Eventually, the dog was able to stand and eat on its own. It could drink water from a bowl, wag its tail, and even take cautious steps outside the kennel onto soft grass. The healing wasn't fast, but it was happening. It would be a long road to recovery, months of care, ongoing monitoring. But what mattered was that it had been rescued, because what we saw that day wasn't just a dog. It was a life that had been pushed to the edge and nearly erased by indifference, neglect, and time. But also, a life that chose to hold on, and in doing so, reminded us why we keep rescuing. If you're still here, thank you. Please share this story, comment, subscribe. Every small action helps, and somewhere out there, another life like this is waiting for someone who won't look away. Every rescue isn't just about saving one dog, it's about creating ripples. One act of compassion leads to another. Every time we choose to help, we restore more than a life, we restore hope. Let this story be a reminder, even the most broken lives can be healed if someone just cares enough to stop, to help, and to believe they matter.
A stray dog gave birth to 6 puppies. In order to keep them alive, she gave 2 of them to humans. Was she pregnant? Or had she already given birth? For little puppies were waiting outside a mountain cave for their mother to return. Don't be fooled by how chubby and clean they look because their mother is actually a stray dog who begs for food every day. On this steep and rugged mountain, a white dog can often be seen eagerly trying to please hikers, hoping to get a bite of food in return. Many kind-hearted climbers will share some of their rations with her. The dog isn't picky, she eats anything that's given. A woman who hikes the mountain regularly said that the dog is a stray but very friendly. If you wave to her, she'll happily come over and let you pet her. Everyone who frequents the trail knows her and adores the sweet, clingy dog. They even gave her a name, Dubai, which means big white. No one knows where Dubai came from. She just appeared on the mountain one day about a year ago, and many people suspect she was abandoned by her owner. Since there's no food in the mountains, Dubai has survived solely by relying on the kindness of hikers who feed her. But lately, people noticed that Dubai's energy was fading. She was looking thinner and more worn out. In the past, when someone gave her food, she would walk them all the way to the mountaintop, acting as a loyal little guide. But recently, she seems too weak. She often stops halfway and turns back. No one knew where she was going. Someone noticed that her belly looked swollen and guessed she might be pregnant or had already given birth. One of the regular hikers decided to follow her to find out. But 2 legs are no match for Forta. Bai quickly disappeared into the deep forest. About an hour later, she reappeared on the main trail and collapsed on a rock, fast asleep. People were curious where had she gone and what had made her so exhausted. So, they strapped a small camera to her collar. After a short rest, Dubai took off downhill, cheerfully greeting tourists along the way, happily accepting pets and cuddles from them. She was such a sweet, polite dog. Meanwhile, volunteers monitored her movements from the camera. They saw her dart into the forest, then climb a snow-covered mountain path, eventually arriving at a stone cave. She barked a few times and suddenly, 4 tiny puppies ran out of the cave. Their appearance and fur were strikingly similar to Debai's. It was clear they were her babies. While Debai was out begging for food again, the hiker and volunteers approached the cave. One little pup poked its head out to see if Mama was back, but upon seeing strangers, quickly retreated into the cave. The 4 little ones huddled together in fear, barking loudly in a show of fierce, adorable bravery. The hikers didn't rush and they just set up a camera at the entrance. Before long, Debai returned. Her puppies rushed to her hungrily, clearly starving. They fought to nurse while Debai stood completely still, letting them feed. As soon as they were full, she left again, without resting. Every time she left, the 4 puppies would sit by the entrance, waiting longingly for her return. The curious little ones soon noticed the camera. They crept up to it, pawed at the lens, and even licked it to see if it was food, eventually knocking it over. That night, Debai came back again to nurse them. But the pups were growing fast and needed to feed more often. Debai was clearly exhausted, almost dozing off as she leaned against the stone wall. Even so, she didn't stay long. After a brief moment with her pups, she left again and returned 2 hours later. Over and over, she came and went, making everyone wonder, where was she going so late when there were no tourists around? The camera finally revealed her secret. Besides caring for the 4 puppies in the cave, Debai was also frequently visiting a guest house at the foot of the mountain. Could this be her home? Volunteers visited the guest house and showed Debai's photo to the owner. The landlady said she wasn't Debai's owner, but she had recently heard the faint cries of puppies under the floorboards. She led the volunteers to investigate, and sure enough, they discovered 2 more puppies there, looking identical to the ones in the cave. It was clear they were also Debai's children. The vet speculated that Debai had given birth to 6 puppies and had been running back and forth every day trying to care for them. But as they grew, it became too much for her to handle alone. Knowing she couldn't support all of them, she had made the heartbreaking decision to leave the 2 weaker pups near humans, hoping they'd be saved. If you believe Debai did the right thing, type 666 in the comments. The landlady brought the 2 pups inside, placing them on a soft blanket and giving them food. They were old enough to eat on their own and gobbled it up like they were starving. Soon after, Debai arrived and sat quietly outside the door. When the puppies saw her, they rushed to the glass and called out to her. But she didn't move. She just looked at them for a long moment, then turned away slowly. The pups pawed anxiously at the glass, whimpering. Still, Debai chose to walk away. She looked back again and again, her eyes filled with longing. As a mother, of course she loved her children, but she knew that letting them go was the only way they might survive. Though it broke her heart, she chose to leave. Sometimes, leaving doesn't mean you don't love, it means you love too much. The landlady wept watching the scene. Everyone was deeply moved by this mother's sacrifice. They decided to give Debai and her puppies a safe place to live. First, they rescued the 4 puppies from the cave. When Debai returned and saw her babies gone, she began searching frantically, crying out in panic. To her, her children were her whole world. When she finally saw that they were safe, she calmed down. She seemed to understand that the people were there to help, not harm. She gently allowed them to put a leash on her. Together, the volunteers carried the puppies and walked Debai down the mountain to a veterinary hospital. The vet gave them all a thorough checkup. All 6 puppies were healthy thanks to Debai's devoted care. Debai herself was severely malnourished and had a minor skin condition, but would recover with time and treatment. The volunteers pledged to carefully screen adopters and find a loving forever home for the entire dog family. Debai now rests her paws on the kennel bars, a look of happiness and gratitude on her face. A mother's love knows no boundaries, not of species, nor words, nor distance. Whether human or animal, a mother's love is unwavering and eternal. Let's give a big thumbs up for this incredible maternal love. If you think the kind-hearted people in this video did the right thing, type "bless the good" in the comments. See you in the next story.